I'd like to welcome everybody back to Alabama Care. Today we have Mr. Robert Cornelius, and we're going to be speaking about his journey in the disability community and navigating for his son, Kevin. At this point, I'd like to hand it back over. Mr. Cornelius, if you would introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Bob. Most people will not know Robert, but Bob Cornelius. We have a law firm, Cornelius and Talley, PC. We work with, I would say, elder law and special needs. That's our only practice genre. Elder law, there's really no such thing as elder law. Okay? There's no statute that says elder law. Either a person is born with a special need, they have an accident in their lifetime that they become a special need, or if Lord's willing, they age to be a special need. So it's all the same product. So we don't want to let the term elder law throw you, but the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys include special needs.
Mm-hmm.
We're located in Irondale or Birmingham, Alabama. Been at it for, I've been at it since my son was born 45 years ago.
I have a friend that says if you live long enough, you will have some type of disability.
Yes.
Yes. And a lot of that goes into, I heard another point where new housing communities have to be built for accessibility because eventually everybody will need those accessibility things. And I wasn't sure how I felt about that, but after the conversation with him, it makes sense.
Medicine is allowing our children and the general population in general to live longer. Mm-hmm. And we've got some children that would not be here with us today if it wasn't for the miracle of modern medicine. I know I would have lost my son multiple times over the last 44 years, 45 years. So, and I know others that's in the same boat. So I think you've got a generation of young adults who are going to live well into their lifespan, what would have been considered their lifespan just a few years ago.
Mm-hmm. I have a family member. I am a legal guardian of a family member myself. She's my aunt. She's 59. And typically in the past, someone with her special needs or disability wouldn't live through their 30s,
Right.
Bedridden and, those kinds of things.
Yep.
And she's living a great life. And that is a lot to the doctors that she has and her caregivers that, allow her to live a great life. And I think we're seeing, like you said, more and more of that. Now you mentioned,
I believe we're going to see more and more of that, and I believe we're going to find that we're going to have issues from housing to Medicare, because Medicaid is not the ultimate answer to the special needs situation.
Yeah, and it's so hard. Well, we'll get into that later. But I would like to kind of go back. You said you've been practicing for about 45 years, and that was about the time that your son was born. If you could introduce your son and kind of how you got into the disability community.
Well, practicing, I worked in the corporate world for 20 plus years and decided just to get out of it, retire, and practice law. Initially, I was going to just help special needs kids and families with young adults or children aging to be into the majority. My son was born April 23rd of 1979, and he was in multiple issues. At birth, the one that revealed itself first, he had an obvious cleft lip and palate. Couldn't take a bottle, couldn't, in fact, cleft lip and palate was so bad, he probably would not have lived 2 weeks after birth, if it hadn't have been for some of the changes that happened. And but Kevin's had 17 surgeries now,
Yep.
and is able to walk to some extent. He can't run, but he's verbal, but no one can understand him. So he speaks in one word at a time. But he's a loving kid, and he's been a blessing in a lot of ways. He's on a home, what we call self-directed program through the MRDD section, state mental health. And he has caregivers that come daily and stay with him until bedtime, and then come back again first thing in the morning, which if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be able to continue to work. And
I
that's,
think a lot of families experience that, especially after the education system. And what I see sometimes is one of the parents, usually the wife, will have to stop working until a foundation can be built where their son or daughter, their loved one, has that support from caregivers.
yeah.
We'll kind of go back. I think being able to help that surgery for cleft lip. Did Kevin have surgery on his lip?
Yes.
I
He,
think that,
he had a full cleft palate and lip. In fact, his lip was almost a double cleft. The palate, he's had surgery to repair the soft palate, and they chose not to do the hard palate simply because the surgery would be, what we were told, wouldn't be worth the risk.
Mhm.
So that's never been fixed. His teeth, it's horrible. Okay. You would think it would be, been better if we could have, just for appearance purposes, helped that. But everyone's told us from age 2 or 3 till today, we did the right thing.
and does he experience any difficulty with eating?
He aspirates a lot of the food back into his lungs,
Mhm.
which he's learned to overcome that. It seems like every time we go into the hospital for a surgery, they start wanting to put a feeding tube in, and we say, no, he'll just give him some strength, he'll overcome it. And sure enough, he gets well enough that he can come home. But he aspirates enough that doctors get concerned every time they see him.
Yep. My aunt will, she doesn't chew very well. And so it's very important for us and her team to cut up her food. Now we don't puree it. We still want her to have texture,
Yep.
but we have to be careful when she's eating that we kind of portion her food and give her, when she's done, she can have more, but she'll kind of spoon it in and then she'll choke and cough and regurgitate. So that's something that we're still working on with her.
Well, we've had that for, going on for, since he's been able to set up at the table.
Yeah.
But he's gotten better, and there was things that we were told as youngster that we would probably have to do that we've been able to just physically overcome with time.
If you would talk a little bit about the early experience there, I've asked my grandparents about that, and I think um, there can be some difficulty in the beginning for new parents. Like my grandfather said to me, he said, your son or daughter can have a great life, but it may not be the life that you envisioned for them. If there was something that you would say to new parents that are entering the disability community, maybe in the first month that they have their child?
Well, and when I look back over these 45 years, that may be where I got into the area of assisting families with legal services. I'll tell you a story. When Kevin was born, and I mean, he was he was less than 1 year old, and we had not had any of the surgeries yet. He needed to get up in pounds to at least 18 before they would even attempt to do one of his surgeries. His pediatrician, may he rest in peace, he was Greek. He and his wife, Kalish, and older folks might remember that name, Dr. Kalish. And unfortunately, they were killed in a earthquake in Greece while on vacation. But for whatever reason, Dr. Kalish called me 2 months, 3 months after Kevin was born, and wanted to know if I would meet with a new family just to talk to them, and he told me, he said, your attitude toward Kevin and his disability is, we wish everybody had that. I didn't know I had anything different than other parents, but I agreed to. And then that led to another visit and another visit and another visit. And I became very attuned to the different types of disabilities, the different severities of it, the different problems that were all different from everyone else. But when he was first born, the cleft lip and palate was such a shock. Okay. And then within the first week, the neonatalologist, I can't remember, told me that, he's likely to have more birth defects. We just haven't found them yet. They haven't materialized yet. And I don't remember who actually told me this. I don't know if it was family, and it probably was, okay? Because my family is extremely strong and together. But they told me, as a parent, love the child. Take your emotions, and you want to be angry at something, be angry at the problem, not the child. Love the child, hate the problem, hate the issue, okay? Hate what you're going to have to go through, or hate what he's going to have to go through, but you love the child. And that stuck with me through the years. And that's the one thing that with new parents, I try to emphasize. Some people it's easier than others, and I recognize that. I know I've seen a huge divorce rate amongst parents with handicapped children. One of the two parents is usually not able to deal with it. And that's fine, but love the child. Take care of the child. You can hate the problem, hate the issue. You can question anything, but just love the child.
I think that's a very powerful thing, and it takes a strong person to shift that mentality, to focus on that challenge. And it has nothing to do with your son or daughter being born. That you love them, like you said, and you got to overcome and tackle these things that are they're going to go through and the family's going to go through. You mentioned the divorce rate. That is a very prominent thing that I've seen statistically in the disability community. But I've also seen kind of that reversed with support groups. So
Yes.
I have a friend, he's been on a number of broadcasts, Lane Hagan. He founded Libby's Friends, and he is part of a dad's support group through United Ability. And they meet monthly. And it allows you to be around others that are kind of going through those similar challenges. And I think that's a really big part of it as well. You cannot isolate, you cannot move to the country and just stay at the house. You have to be around a community, and you have to get plugged in from the very start. You have to know that you can rely on others and they can rely on you.
And I have attended those meetings, those monthly meetings on several occasions. I don't get to go as often as I would like, but I know a lot of the guys that are in that group.
Mhm.
The that group is helpful. Any type of support like that is helpful. Especially getting the dads or the mothers, family, grandparents, everyone to, you got to get the child out of the house. Okay. I mean, my son with a double cleft lip and palate, or very close to double, was freaky looking to other people. He was scary. I mean, everybody was afraid to pick him up, afraid to see him eat anything. And it took a tough skin at first to get up and go to church. Okay. You had to keep him with you in the worship service because you couldn't leave him in the nursery. Finding daycare services early on, all of these things were challenges. But again, you love the child, you hate the problem, so you attack the problem and just keep going.
I think that's a really big thing early on, especially. Um, Kind of a similar story for me. So my aunt goes to church and sometimes Sunday school, and she uses a wheelchair when she is in the community. And some of the children in Sunday school see a grown woman using a wheelchair and may look different or communicate differently. Now she's nonverbal; she can speak in oohs and ahs kind of thing. Um, but she loves the color. She loves being around kids. She loves doing fun activities. And they're a little standoffish at first, but you just have to bridge that gap. Hey, this is my aunt. Her name's Bridget. She loves the color. Do you want to hand her a crayon, something like that? And I think it's really important for your son or daughter, the individual, to have those experiences, but also for the rest of the community and society to know that that's okay, that my aunt is a person just like everybody else and she enjoys it. You don't have to be scared to go up to her and interact.
Yeah,
And
and that leads us into leads my thought pattern into starting to school.
yep.
Okay. Parents are afraid if you're, it doesn't matter if you have a normal, perfectly beautiful child at age 5, 6, leaving them at school for the first time is butterflies in your stomach at least. Some parents have a real hard time doing that, but if you've got a special needs child and you're going to leave him in the care of a person that you've met once, maybe twice, those first couple of days at school are critical. The child not only does the child need to learn to be away from you, you need to learn to be away from the child. You need to treat them normal. Let them go to school. Let them ride the bus. Yeah, it's makes you nervous, but
No, well, go ahead.
you've got to get over those humps because the child's exposure to the world is paramount, and you don't need to treat a special needs child drastically different. You're going to treat them a little bit different, but you don't need to treat them drastically different than a normal child.
Now, what types of things did your family do to prep for Kevin going to school? Did you meet with teachers before or after, maybe a little bit longer? Those types of things.
No, we didn't do any of it. We didn't prepare. It's just time to go to school. He was 5. We could put him into preschool. He just went to preschool, went in, and I guess maybe from a naive standpoint, I trusted too much, but thank God it worked. He had wonderful teachers. He was in the Jefferson County school system, and he rode the bus for 90% of the time. And his teachers were just marvelous. I mean, they took him, and we're still in touch with several of the teachers that we had through the years. I've had one teacher that we just really liked, young African-American lady that came up to me and had to remind me who she was. But Kevin had during his what would be his high school years, and asking me questions and so forth. And Kevin got sick, and was pretty dangerous about six. It was a dangerous situation about 6, 7 years ago. It was amazing how many previous contacts through Jefferson County school system and people came back, found out, contacted us, that just showed up at the hospital unexpectedly. And I mean, he was in intensive care. It wasn't for him. He was there for us, because you're sharing your child and your child's issues with others, school, teachers. It's just amazing, the camaraderie that develops over time.
I think that's really amazing that you and your family had that belief, and you didn't really treat Kevin's experience through school any different than your other children. Like you said, riding the bus, and it's a blessing to have those teachers around. I had teachers in my life that have been a blessing to me.
So did I.
And you almost have to give them the opportunity, the community, the teachers, the opportunity to step up and be those type of people. They want to, so don't deny them that opportunity to help as well. Now, it sounds like he had a very pleasant experience through the school system, but were there any challenges along the way for, I don't know, did he receive extra services at school? And did you have to kind of fight for some of that with the school or the school district?
I found that if you listened to the teachers, I mean, anytime you'd sit down with the teachers and the staff and work on an IEP, or that's an individual education plan for any of you might not be aware of. The IEP, you want the child to be pushed. You want him to learn. You want him to get the most out of this as you can. But listen to the professionals, listen to the speakers. Parents need to accept that a teacher or a doctor or a lawyer or anyone you're coming in contact with, they can't fix the issue, okay? So you want your child to grow, to experience, to expand. But when you're going into that IEP, you insist that they push them to do more, but at the same time, be realistic of what can happen. So if you set a goal that the child is going to increase something by 30% or 40%, you're never going to know if they really got to that point, but you're pushing them to do their best. Mm-hmm. And but listen to those special education teachers and coordinators and so forth. They're doing what they can with what they got. And we don't fund our school system for special ed adequately. We don't fund Medicaid adequately to take medical care of them, but it don't stop us from taking them to the doctor and asking questions.
Yeah. sometimes I hear stories where it seems like the parents and the teachers fight, kind of going back and forth. And I think it's important to come to the table. And like you said before, it's not the person, it's something you're overcoming a challenge together.
Yep.
And so you got to realign that perspective there. Now, did Kevin receive services like speech therapy, language therapy, those types of things?
They tried early on. He received some special, uh, they were going to teach him sign language.
Mhm.
And they got some of that started. Then all of a sudden, Kevin became more vocal. And they stopped the sign language and increased the speech therapy, trying to get him to be, well, as in the end result, he probably knows a little bit of both. And but he can't communicate by sign language. Uh, and he speaks in 1 to 2 words at a time. If you're around him a little while, you'll get to know what those words are.
Yeah.
But he tries. He tries to talk to us, tell us things um, that we just can't understand. It
He's
takes.
got his own communication style, and I say that to anybody that meets my aunt. It'll take a few weeks, but she
Yeah,
knows exactly what she's saying, and you will too once you learn that. And
right.
we tried, as part of her plan and her goals, she has an iPad where she can press on certain stuff, like, I want some coffee. She loves her coffee. Um, and so that's part of her PSP and her goals. She hates the thing. She's like, why do I have to touch this thing when I'm pointing at the coffee maker and you know what I want? So it's going back and forth there. And it's like, yeah, but we're trying to see if you can use this to say you want to go to McDonald's and stuff that's not directly in front of you. We haven't made that connection yet, but we're continuing to try it. But she gets so frustrated with it sometimes.
We did the same thing. Uh, Purchased an iPad, and he he never did gather like he could push a picture of his grandparents and letting us know he wanted to see them or talk to them. He never connected pushing that iPad with it.
No.
Now, at the same time, he can be on that iPad and he'll punch every button in there. Well, he's learned which buttons to push to get movies. And then he'll sit and he never watches them, he just sits and listens at them, okay, over and over and over again. My wife and I could probably uh, almost quote the movie Free Willy or Dennis the Menace or Homeward Bound. It's just amazing. He's fixated on 1 or 2 movies and but he knows how to find those movies. And if something's wrong and that iPad's not working, he lets us know.
Yeah.
And he'll bring it to you and you can tell pretty quick he's trying to find a movie. One of the funniest things that ever happened was he used to find uh, basketball, pro basketball games. It was just amazing. I don't know how he found them, but they would just be, it might be a replay, it might be a live broadcast, but he would find all the, I mean, he'd sit and watch basketball and will today. He likes the fast pace of the movement. So
That's amazing that he found something, it was first introduced to him and he's like, I don't really want to use this in this manner, but he found something he really enjoyed out of that just by giving him the opportunity to do that.
and he do the same thing with the cell phone.
Yeah. This technology is getting too far for me. I always got to ask my younger brothers how I do stuff on my phone now.
Oh, I fought it with here at the office. I'm still the old, give me a book,
Yeah.
give me a pad and paper. I, I, I've complained about it till I finally just got old and gave up.
I want to talk a little bit about, I think a lot of times parents can seem like they get bulldozed a little bit when trying to receive services for their child in the school system or even after. And I think knowing your loved one's rights and what they are able to have can be a big bedrock for families saying, no, that's not correct. My son or daughter, should have access to these things and does deserve, has these rights. Um, can you talk a little bit about the importance of knowing the law in that aspect?
Again, I'm going to go back to in talking to a parent straight out. We live in a world that you've got every child, I don't care how severe they are, has rights. And so going through school from age 5 um, through age 21, the school system is the one responsible for getting services. Okay. At 21, you have somebody else stepping in, the JCIDDA, the MRDDs, the M4As if you're in Shelby County. Now it's their responsibility, and you have a new caseworker that gets introduced. If the school system is really done their job, they notify these service providers that this child's coming. Okay, he's 18, and this is his problems, and this is his last IEP, and how long he's been in the system, and so forth. So you began to you just gosh, I don't know how I want to say this. The system is there, and sometimes it's a miscommunication with school. Sometimes it's the fact that a child has moved from one school to the next too many times, too many jurisdictions, that they fall through the cracks until somebody steps up. But the system is trying to help. Okay. You can't fly mad and think that every person out there is against your child, or they're trying to prevent from spending money or whatever. First of all, the monies are so scarce that you really you got to be realistic. School systems don't have it. You need to be talking to your state legislatures or your state representatives and senators about getting funding more for the school system. And then, of course, same thing goes once they become adults. We need more funding on the state level to get services running out there. I don't say you don't advocate. It's more of a be realistic. It's not that teacher's fault. It's not that special needs supervisor's fault. She's trying to put through programs and asking for things. And many times she asks for things knowing not likely to get that, but I might get something else.
Yep. I think it's like no one wakes up thinking I want to do a disservice to the community that I serve today, whether that's someone from the state or a teacher. They are people just like us and trying to do their best there. And I think
they've got a job to do, and they're going to do that job to the best of their abilities with what they have to do.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I run a law firm, and I have employees that, well, if you could just get me this, I could do a better job. Well, I have to do a risk reward or a profit loss idea. Okay, this might be of help, but how much help? Would it really be profitable to do? State's doing the same thing. Okay. Now, I disagree with more that our state education system does than what they actually do. I mean, I honestly think that, they could do better. They could take that dollar and stretch it in different ways that would make it better. And I'm prejudiced to the special needs community, and I admit all that on the front end. But I also find, and gosh, guys, I really don't know how to say this. I find families, parents, and whether it be parents, brothers and sisters, grandparents, aunts, uncles, whatever, that they're mad. They don't know who they're mad at, but they're mad, and they don't like it, and they accuse everybody else. So they come off in talking to the teacher or the doctor or the social worker or anyone else in the team as it evolves through the years. And it is an evolving process. This year is going to be different than next year, and 5 years from now it's going to be totally different. You're going to be dealing with different people, but they're mad. Again, I go back to something I said earlier. You want them to fix it, and it can't be fixed. No. I don't know why God chose me to have a son like Kevin. I don't know why God chose your family. I guess it was your grandparents that had your aunt, right? Why they chose them. But for whatever reason, I look at the world and say, man, I've been given a big job, and I've got to do the best I can with it. So I don't have the money to do everything that I want to do. I don't have the resources, the time, the space, the anything else. But still don't mean I don't try.
And that's part of life. You got to give it your best foot forward, whatever
Correct.
it is. You don't know the outcome. That'll figure itself out. But your job is to provide the opportunity to keep moving forward.
Right. And, now Kevin's through school. By the way, a lot of people, there's question marks. People will call me and ask, well, I can't get services. Well, and they're talking about SSI check or Medicaid or whatever. Under the age of 19, your child is a dependent of you. So your income is attributed to the child. So if you go down and file at age 15, 14, whatever, for SSI benefits, they're going to look at the parent's income. Okay. Now, if you're over that limit or you've got too many assets, because it's a $2,000 limit. I mean, most anybody has more than that. Not everybody. I don't mean to disparage anybody, but often you get denied for those benefits. And some will call and say, well, he's turning 18. Okay. In Alabama, 19 is the threshold. At age 19, on that birthday, your son, daughter is an adult with every right as any other 19-year-old adult, regardless of their disability. Now, when you turned 19, you were an adult, and your parents, couldn't tell you everything to do.
And they didn't claim me on their taxes anymore.
Yeah. That's when you need to go get and do it as early as you can, because it's going to happen. Something's going to happen and you need it, and you don't want it to be an emergency. Go ahead and go get parental guardianship. we've passed laws in the state that makes special statute that if you're the natural parent, it's on a fast track. Yes, it still costs money. It's typically going to cost you a couple of $1,000 to get it, but it's better than waiting till it's an emergency to get it. And now it costs more than that. I've dealt with situations where young adult, 20-something, injured, rushed to the hospital. Mother gets to the hospital. They won't let mother back because she's not the guardian. Mother don't speak for the child anymore. And that's a hard thing for parents and different people to come to grips with. You said you were the guardian of your aunt.
Mhm.
I am my son's guardian. So anything that he needs, it comes to me. I have to sign for him. I have to agree to certain things. And a guardian is over the person, not over assets, not over money. It's a person, what they're putting on what their clothes they're wearing, where they're going to live, who they're going to live with. It's over the person. You're responsible for that person.
Mhm.
So, but so you have to get that at some point in their adulthood, or somebody will.
Mhm.
And when somebody is the guardianship and passes away, somebody steps up and they file for successor guardianship.
Which is what happened with my family. My grandfather was guardian and he passed away, and I had to file for that transfer of guardianship through the court system.
Yeah, it's called the successor of guardianship, and it's again, the system, the court system is there to protect that child or that young adult and his rights, because a guardianship removes his rights or her rights.
And you may have to go to the court and speak with the judge to make sure that there's no someone being taken advantage of.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you get the caseworkers get involved, a distant, in your case, you were a nephew, but I've had cases where a cousin stepped in and the child has to go to a group home because the cousin's willing to be the guardian, but can't take care of the child totally, or the young adult, and be accused of by the caseworkers of just stealing his money.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And it's just unfortunate, but some of those things you just can't take personal. You know, it's a system, it's systems out there to protect that person in all circumstances. So, you know, you just got to be aware of that. But you do want to get guardianship try to get it at age 19 or as quickly thereafter as you can.
Now, besides, I think the SSI is a really good point there in guardianship. Are there other things that you recommend families in general look into or would do to help protect their loved one?
Uh,
And on the other end of that, what are some things that you see that you recommend families don't do, or you've seen become very challenging?
okay, let's state your first part of that question again.
So what are some other things that you see through your work? You mentioned getting the SSI and doing guardianship. What are some other things that you would recommend families really take into consideration?
Well, when you mention SSI, I want to point out to you, and this is just a rule of thumb, but it's true. If you think SSI, Medicaid comes along automatically. Okay, when you're approved for SSI, you're approved for Medicaid at the same time. when you are approved, when a person is approved under the SSDI disability income, that puts them on Medicare, no matter what age they are, after 2 years. So always think in terms SSI, Medicaid, SSDI, think Medicare. Now,
If you could clarify between the two, it's my understanding that SSDI means you had to have worked before.
correct. I mean, if a person has worked in a job 12 quarters, I think it is, they paid into the system. They've had a W-2 that somebody paid into the system and matched theirs. That's SSDI, okay? And that's where you see the Pitt Cincinnati commercials on television.
Have you gotten hurt on the job kind of thing?
Yes, correct.
Yep.
And are you disabled at that point? SSI is a program that's federally funded, that's administered by the states. But the money the Fed puts up, the state has to put up the same amount of money to get the Fed money. Okay. But then the state has got a program that's state Medicaid, that they administer that program. Okay. So, and that's your difference between the SSI and your Social Security disability income. Okay. You're capped on SSI. I think today it's $794 or something along that price range. But that's just monthly income. You can get services, day program services, transportation services, all of these different things that you see families with a special needs adult go to. And that's what happens after they leave the school system. Okay. So you have the right to keep your child in school until you're age 21. At age 21, the state takes over, or the MRDD board take over. Caseworker comes out, and her job is to make sure that your child or your young adult gets every service that he's or she is entitled. Trust that caseworker, make her your best friend.
Okay.
Okay?
I always say that to every family. I say there's one relationship that you need to foster, and that's the caseworker, because they're your link to the state services.
They're your link to the state services. And the last thing you want to do is not only get on their bad side, but get on the region's bad side, because you keep asking for a new one. And every one of them is trying to do the best they can with what they got. My son, your aunt, some people will qualify for certain services that other people doesn't qualify for. And your friend at church whose son gets one thing and you feel like you want that thing, but they tell you don't qualify. They're not lying to you. There's different requirements for different things.
Yeah.
So, but that's where you need on what's called the Medicaid waiver. Now, there's several waivers. In fact, I think there's 10 or 12 different waivers for different things that's out there. That caseworker, okay, is your link to getting on that. But you can add your child to the list, okay, starting at about age 10 or 11. I mean, they changed it over the years. I put my son, or I didn't put my son, but his first grade teacher told me to do it, and at age 6. And we got him on this waiver list. Now, waiver list is getting close to 5,000 people on it, which means somebody's got to come off of it, and that's usually happens by their death. But somebody, that list is long. The earlier you can get your child on that list, the better. And because that list will pay for housing if necessary, transportation if necessary, day programs, uh, the group homes. He'll never go without the net foods and housing and that type of stuff. And from a personal standpoint, I want to tell you a route that or a journey, I'm gonna call it a journey that my son and I have been on for these years. School system, like it's what we talked about before, you really get interested in take care of the teachers and trust them, but yet push them. Okay. Once he's adult and he's out of school, he gets on, if you've gotten on that list early enough, he gets on the waiver system. Well, we got on the waiver system at about age 25. Up till then, he stayed in a private school. Okay.
In a private school, you said?
Private school, and we let his SSI check pay 80% of the tuition on that. But so he gets on the system. Well, the first thing we do is we find a day program. We visit the ARC. We visit United Abilities. We visited these other places. Some places he was too advanced for. Some places he was not advanced enough for. Okay. Well, we finally settled on United Abilities at Link Point, the day program. Kevin stayed there till he was about 7, 8 years ago now. And he got a routine, well, let me back up. The first program we did, we got afternoon care coming into the house after school.
What waiver was the first program, if you don't mind me
This
asking?
was the ID waiver.
Okay.
Okay, which they're trying to change now to another waiver that does somewhat the same thing. But we started out, they gave us 20 hours a week for an afternoon person to come in after school, feed him, gets his bath, whatever's necessary within that 24 hours.
And this was at age 21 when he was going to the private school?
Yes.
So he would go to private school during the day, and then someone would come over to the house for
Yeah.
when he got home and help him.
like about 4 o'clock and stay through 7, something
Yep.
of that nature. But we used that whole 20 hours. We could use them any way we wanted to.
Now, who came to the house? How did you find them?
That we had to go through a service. The state gave us a list of companies like Visiting Angels, Comfort Care, there's several of them out there, Home Helpers, so forth.
But it wasn't you going and saying, we're going to hire somebody. It was,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, they would give you a list and you picked the agency, and then they would send somebody out. If you didn't like that person, or, you had conflict or something, you could just call the company back and they'd send somebody else out.
Yep.
So we had that for 3-4 years.
Yep.
Then we finally decided to move him to United Abilities at Link Point. He stayed at Link Point for quite a few years. The bus, Class Tran, would pick him up at home in the morning, bring him back in the afternoons. We just had to coordinate somebody to be at the house to meet the bus. Over time, he he just needed a different kind of transportation, okay? We couldn't get him up in the mornings to time to catch that bus. And we were able to get on the transportation with kid one. Okay. Kid one would pick him up, kid one would bring him back. Okay. And that stayed that way until Kevin had a routine medical issue. It was, I guess, some people call them a rhizome, some people call them a boil or whatever. But it's, some little hair follicle gets infected and so forth. Well, with a child like this, we had to go to surgery. Okay, and they had to put Kevin to sleep because they can't just deaden it and lance it. And he had issues waking up and went into, had to be put on a ventilator and spent 15 days or so on a ventilator. Well, he comes out and they are going to put him on, send him home on hospice. That caseworker that I told you to make good friends with, that caseworker comes to the house after we get him home. And we didn't know if he was going to live. They didn't give him much chance to live. But that caseworker comes in. I said, well, at what point, if he gets over this hospice stage, do we start going back to normal? And she said, oh, you're not going back to Lake Point. I said, really? He says, nope. We're going to transfer his waiver from a working transportation program, and I don't know what they're called, to a stay-at-home waiver. And, oh, we can do that, yes. So that happens. He gets better and comes off of hospice. And the first thing they sent in was nurses, LPNs, that would come in at 7 o'clock in the morning and stay with him till 7 o'clock at night. And it freed us up to know we had qualified people. He gradually got better and got off of that. And they gave us an agency list. Pick anybody. You're going to have 50 hours a week of caregiver service. And he's not going back to school or going back to, he's technically retiring. Okay. And then a few years ago, the state set up what they call the self-directed program. Now, self-directed just means you're hiring your own caregivers, okay? And the state's paying the bill. You just got paperwork to go through. And when we did that, we decided to go that route. Every caregiver we had, and we had 3 at the time working through these agencies, all 3 caregivers came with us and stayed with us. Really? And they're still with us. I've hired 1 caregiver since that time. And ironically, the caregiver that just stayed in touch with us over the time period after Kevin went from needing transportation, the kid 1 driver came to us and said, "Oh, you need a caregiver." Well, is it possible for you to hire me? Sure it is. Well, I'm fixing to retire from driving, kid 1. And he's been with us ever since.
That's amazing that you've been able to retain his caregivers. I think that speaks to the family's relationship and taking care of them as well.
Well, I think in reality, I think it speaks to my wife being OCD about making sure that all pays happen correctly over the time period. But we've got 4 caregivers, 3 on a weekly basis and one on an emergency basis. That
Oh,
we
so
can
you've even
call.
got a backup too.
Right.
Yeah. I think a lot of families on self-directed services struggle to find good caregivers and retain them. And it's a relationship like anything else. My aunt has 3 caregivers on her team right now. One just retired at the end of last year. She was with Bridget for 20 years.
Mhm.
And you have to take care of them just like you would anyone else you care about to make sure that
Right.
they take care of your loved one. And you have to build that relationship.
Yeah, and in trust, okay, you've got to trust. I've seen so many families that, oh, I don't want somebody in my house. I can't trust and leave my child with this person that uh, I don't really know. Uh, you
Yeah.
got different dynamics, but that's not within the system. Okay, just work within the system, and you will be fine. You're not gonna. No one's going to do anything to your child or to you or prevent you from getting anything on purpose.
Yeah.
They,
What does a week look like for Kevin today? Where is he living? What types of activities does he do during the week? Those types of things.
Kevin still lives at home, lives with me. He always has. And his mother and I divorced when he was 6, I think, something like that. But Kevin's always lived with me. Uh, Caregiver comes in about 8 o'clock in the morning, gets him up, goes through the morning routine, either has breakfast at home or they go out to Cracker Barrel or Waffle House or something and getting pancakes, and that's expense on me. But then they go to Lakeshore, and they either get in the pool, swim, walk. Of course, Kevin can't swim or anything, and in fact, he don't do much walking, but it helps his hip, and because he does have very bad hips, and that was a big surgery years ago. But if they can't, or it's too cold, or whatever, they just walk around the track, okay, and it gets him exercise, gets him up and moving. Then mid-afternoon, he'll get back home at about 3:30. One caregiver will leave, another one will come in. The one that comes in at 3:30 or so will stay with him through supper. And by the way, the first one will put him in the bathtub to get, and the second one gets him out.
Okay, so he knows
So
that's transition time for who's going to
he
be
does
with
that transition very good. And then he'll be bathed, gets out, gets ready for bed, even though it's 4:30 in the afternoon, and eats supper, and she'll stay with us until 7, sometimes 8 o'clock, and assist us getting in bed if we need to.
Yeah.
And then we have nobody. So in Monday through Friday, that's kind of the routine.
Yep.
We have one night, Thursday night, that we've been able to carve out somebody to stay with him from that 3:30, 4 o'clock hour till 9 o'clock at night, which allows, and we did this on purpose, to allow my wife and I the opportunity to go out to dinner, not have to rush, and have adult time. So, and that over the last 5 years has been an absolute blessing beyond blessings.
I'm sure for both you and for Kevin.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So, that's on a Thursday night. Then we got that 6 days a week.
Yeah, that's
It was
amazing.
Monday through Saturday.
I think a lot of people that are going to hear that story are going to say, I want that. But it didn't all happen at once.
No, it did
Kevin
not.
was on different waivers. His life look, he had challenges at different points in his life.
That's right.
But you got to keep going forward with that process.
That's right. And be alert. And it wasn't my idea to do it. His caseworker, who, you know, your new best friend, as over the years that she got to know the family and she got to know us. And yes, we swapped caregivers a couple of times, but you still get to know them. They get to know you. They get to know Kevin. Uh, as Kevin's life changed, uh, his services changed. And it wasn't me fighting the system. It wasn't me having any type of inside uh, clout. Okay. A lot of people will say, yeah, but you know, you're an attorney, you do this for a living, you've got, no, guys, that don't mean anything. And it just happened.
Mm.
And that's why I said your caseworker is your key.
Yep.
And get to know her, get her on her cell phone, get her where she can, you know, and be aware she can't call, she can't answer the phone every time you call. She will have to call you back, but she's got other clients and they're overloaded. They can't find enough good social workers to do that. So I think we're on over the years, we're probably on our 10th, 12th different case worker.
Yeah. I've only known one case worker for my aunt, and I pray that she doesn't retire anytime soon. But also to point out that they may not know your loved one as well as you do, and
Mhm.
you need to communicate and help your loved one, like my aunt, communicate to the caseworker what her needs are so that she can better understand, okay, these services would help you reach that goal in the next year.
Yeah.
And a lot of that will happen at the person-centered planning meeting, which is done once or twice a year. When you get together and you set some goals, and then she can help direct you with the services that'll help you achieve those goals.
100%. My our annual meeting to plan for the next 12 months is next Wednesday morning.
Yeah. Mine, or not mine, but Bridget's is in late May.
Yeah.
So we're coming
So
along.
it,
So that's really cool that Kevin goes to Lakeshore. Does he go on Fridays?
does what now?
Does Kevin go to Lakeshore on Fridays?
Yes, if he wants to. I mean, it's up to them if they have something they want to do, but he goes at least 4 days a week.
My aunt goes to Lakeshore on Fridays and has a personal trainer in the pool at 11
Oh,
every.
really? Well,
Yeah,
Kevin is usually there somewhere around 10.
I'm
And
sure they've crossed paths before. They
and her caregiver, his caregiver goes with him
Yep.
and gets in the pool with him. And he can't do what the water aerobics that they like to do.
Mhm.
And somebody will do the water aerobics with a therapist in the pool with them.
Yep.
For Kevin, his caregiver just goes.
Yep.
He's not going to do much.
Yeah, my aunt, it's really good for her. She doesn't walk much by herself. She uses some crutches around the house, but it's really good for her to get in the pool. We used to do the caregiver thing. We decided we thought it was best if we were to hire one of their instructors at Lakeshore. We're not doing 4 days a week, which would be tough for her
Yeah.
to do financially. So we've made it work with the one. She's gotten to the point where she's not too happy about it, but it's important that she gets her workout in. It's good for her.
Yeah, absolutely. They need to move just like we need to move.
Yeah, I agree. What is kind of the long-term plan ensuring that Kevin continues to live his best life? If something happened where your wife or his mother weren't able to help him.
Well, I have to plan it because I know his mother can't. Okay. But we've prepared, this is a very important point for families to realize, not just the parents, but the grandparents, aunts, uncles. You cannot leave anything at your death to the child. If you do, Medicaid's going to make you spend every dime of it and then put him back on the services. Okay. So you need to, your estate plan, inside that, your will or outside it, it can happen either way. You need to prepare a special needs trust. That's a revocable trust with a special needs clause in it. We draft them every week. Okay. And if that's too costly, okay, because it is a costly document, it takes a lot of hours to prepare. You can use the Alabama Family Trust. That's AFT. Now, that was set up as a special needs trust, thinking initially with senior citizens to prevent them from having to, the normal person, they're just aged, and it allows them to take their life earned assets, move it over to a special needs trust, and still qualify for Medicaid.
I believe it's 5 years for that though, right?
5-year look back. No, well, there's a 5-year look back unless you put it into a special needs trust.
Okay.
Now, the special needs trust will have a payback provision to Medicaid. Now, there's two kinds, and I'm getting off in the weeds here.
At that point, I would say it's
that if you think
call
you need that,
Mr. Cornelius and go to his office. He will help you.
yeah, if you think you need a trust, yeah, you can call the office. Now you can do a trust freestanding, do it right now, fund it right now, or it can be funded through your estate when you pass away.
Yeah.
So it's part of your will. Okay. Either one works. The AFT will work. And not everything has a payback provision. Okay. So if a third party, okay, not Kevin, not your child, is setting that trust up, then there's no payback.
Gotcha.
But if you allow that money or those assets to become, in my case, Kevin's, Kevin can still take those assets, or a family member can still assist him and put those over into a special needs trust. But that's called a first party, and that is when you have a payback provision.
Okay, and a payback provision would be like, you'd have to pay for some of the Medicaid money
Yes, yes.
that was given to hire the caregivers, for instance.
And this was set up, when you look into the AFT, this was a state legislation that was passed several years ago for the purpose of assisting people to be able to house and have some money and still qualify for Medicaid.
Now, it's my understanding that your personal residence and your car were not counted to the $2,000 limit for affecting benefits. Is that correct?
Maybe under certain situations, but the limit is $2,000. Not, yeah. It's not just because you got a house. At the house, it's over $2,000, then
It'll count against you.
Considered. So would a car.
Yeah.
Now, in certain situations, you are allowed to an automobile for transportation purposes, even if you don't drive. Okay. Now you're getting into the nitty gritty between a senior citizen and a 30-year-old.
Yeah,
okay?
exactly. So you've through a special needs trust, you've made sure that Kevin is financially taken care of for his
Correct.
life, even though his assets, those assets won't be owned by him. But what about the other aspects of, if one of the caregivers leaves, how will he find another caregiver?
Well, that is a challenge. Okay. You ask friends, you ask family, you talk to uh, people at church, uh, you just scramble. Okay. You can put a uh, uh, ad out there on like Zip Recruiter or something, but that's when you have to be very, very careful to vet that person before you allow them to come in. Because on self-directed, you're not hiring somebody that's bonded.
Yeah.
So if they steal, then you're on your own. You got to vet that person before you really get them hired.
Who's going to do that if it's not you?
Me. I mean, it's called the employer. I'm called the employer of record, or EOR, and it is all up to me.
What is the long-term plan if you're no longer here? Who
Okay.
takes guardianship and is there a plan there for if
Yes.
in a car accident?
We the the special needs trust will be funded, okay,
Yeah.
with whatever assets works from what from my 401k plan to our house to anything else we've saved over the years, and that includes life insurance. Uh, you make your beneficiary of your life insurance your special needs trust, and your money will just won't go directly to him. It can't, because he would lose it. But you let it go into the trust. And then you leave a trustee. Most people want a family member as trustee. And if you're going to do that, you need to consider having a trustee backup and a backup's backup. Okay. That's very hard to do. But then after that, some point down the line, you're going to, if he lives long enough, you're going to wind up with a corporate trustee like a bank.
Okay. Yeah. We have a succession plan. So my grandfather kind of oversaw my aunt's care. And
Mhm.
then now it's me. If something happens to me, it's going to be my cousin.
Mhm.
Um, and so we kind of talked about that. She would assume guardianship, Bridget would move to Mobile, those types of things. I think it's important to have those conversations because it puts your mind at ease. I think that's a big worry for a lot of parents, is
Right.
that constant thing. What's going to happen to my son or daughter if I'm no longer here?
And that's why the waiver that I was telling you about with the caseworker, if everything else falls through, that caseworker can assist him in finding a group home to live in with others. This is not an institution, it's a home with roommates and full-time caregivers living at the house. Okay. But I want to emphasize it's not really an institution, it's a home, and he still has the rights to get up and go to a day program or do what he wants to. He's still got those.
Those
Uh,
services will follow him wherever he is.
correct, correct.
Oh,
So, but uh, I've got what I consider 3 children. They're not mine. My wife had 2 when we got married, and I have a young man that I adopted, or didn't officially adopt, but just took him in and raised him from preteen till today. And he's actually the only child that's followed me. He is an attorney. But you'll leave him as your uh, trustee, and after him it'll be the next one, and then third one, and you hope that you still have something left over. But with a special needs trust, you don't want to overfund it, because what's going to happen to it at the end? You got to make sure you've even thought that through, because Kevin can't think it through. So in my case, we at Kevin's passing, I leave it to my grandkids. Like I said, I've got Kevin's got three wonderful siblings that not really blood, but will take care of him. But they've all been so successful that I can't, I just can't even explain how successful they are. But
So you have a succession plan there. You've spoken with the family, everyone's on board. And I'm sure for you, that's a big kind of sigh of relief and trusting.
that and knowing that I've left enough leeway in that trust that if one of the successor trustees wants to step aside, they can.
Mhm.
Okay.
Very cool. As we kind of wrap up here, I'd just like to say, kind of leave it open. What would you say to a family? Well, you kind of answered this as a young. What would you say to a family transitioning their child from the education system to community living? That can be a really challenging time.
Um, that's going to be some of the biggest decisions that the parent will make or the guardian will make, because that is a period you're moving a child from something a routine that they've known all their lives over to a different routine with different people involved. So picking that transition place, I go back to this, I can't emphasize it enough. Rely on your caregiver. If your caregiver is not responding to your needs, ask for another caregiver. It's a job. You're not going to hurt anybody's feelings. Okay. And find a caregiver that you can communicate with. Okay. And that you feel like you could trust, so forth. So, but she's a big key at that point. I remember my caregiver, we got in the car and we drove around at that point in time. We visited every place in town. We considered every angle. We went back and took Kevin to a couple of them to see how he responded. And we made that decision together. Okay. She would tell me what we could do, what would be required here, what would be required at this place. But that was because I trusted her.
Yeah.
I knew she had Kevin's best interest at heart.
Yeah. And I think that touches a really good point is you don't have to make these decisions all by yourself.
That's correct.
Rely on the experts, get to know them really well, give them the information they need to better support your family and your loved one.
Yep.
And rely on them.
Right.
They'll be there for you.
Absolutely.
Well, is there, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. No.
I was just going to say, is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you'd like to say to families?
Enjoy it. Enjoy the journey. Your child, some people will have a child that will be extremely musically talented or academically achievements, maybe athletic achievements or whatever. But your special needs child is going to have a journey of its own, and it's your choice. Enjoy that journey with them, okay? Or fight the system. And fighting the system, I've always found doesn't work.
And it's no fun to wake up and fight everybody.
No, and you have to be the overseer and communicate what you think their needs are, and then be realistic when they come back and tell you, well, we can't do that, but we can do this.
Mr. Cornelius, I want to say thank you again for spending the last hour with us. And for anyone that's interested in learning more about your services, thinking about setting up a special needs trust, guardianship, those kinds of things, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, my law firm is Cornelius and Tally, PC. My partner is a master degree social worker as well as an attorney. And we're located in Birmingham. And really, we're on the eastern side of the county. We're sitting at the closer to Trustful. I guess might be the best part most people would recognize it. But you can find us on the web, Cornelius Tally, just leave the and out, .com. We do have a small, we're in the process of updating this website, but we have a small booklet that you can download and, ebook that will help explain some of this. We're a different type law firm because we're not handling a car wreck, or we're not going to handle your divorce. Although I have, got contacted years ago. Lady said I need a divorce, and well, we don't do divorces. And she said, well, your website says you are an elder law attorney. I said, I am. And she says, well, I'm an elder. I said, but ma'am, I really don't do divorces. Well, she said, I'm reading your website and it says you're also a special needs attorney. I said, yes, ma'am. And she said, well, I'm in a wheelchair. And
She's like, I'm your perfect client.
make a long story short, I did a divorce. I don't know how well I did that divorce, but thank God it was a fight. And she was 68 years old in a wheelchair and had been all her life. So I'm not going to say I'm not going to do anything, but we concentrate our practice on senior citizens and families with special needs children. And whatever that entails, we get involved with. If it's a new parent with a brand new baby, okay, or a family just finds out they're fixing to give birth to a special needs child in today's world. When Kevin was born, we didn't do that. I'll be happy. In fact, I'll be honored to visit with them, talk with them, explain things to them that the journey's going to take. That's just something I've done all my life. There's no cost. Okay. No cost. If anyone wants to contact me, just tell whoever's answering the phone that you saw this, and I don't know what to call this podcast. I don't know what you saw me on this, and we will waive, or you don't even ask, just when you get in, tell me, we waive any consultation fee from that. And if there's ever any type of consultation fee, if you hire us, we take it off the bill anyway. So, but once you become a client, once we help you with your trust, or we help you with your estate planning or guardianship or whatever, I consider you a client forever. And I have people calling me back all the time, just asking questions about how should I do this?
Yeah.
Phone calls, no, there's no charges for phone calls. I think that's a bunch of malarkey for attorneys to do that.
Well, Mr. Cornelius, on behalf of the community, I just want to say thank you for everything you do through being an attorney and helping other families, but also being a rock and kind of a guide for those that are needing to hear some things and ask some questions. So
I appreciate the opportunity, and anytime to talk to parents or families that are challenged with this, I'm here. Call me. And chances are, if you start asking questions out there in the at United Abilities or the Ark or somewhere, my name's going to be popped up anyway.
Yeah. All roads lead.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your time and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to parents.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you saying that.